Time for the 49ers Rush Podcast. And here's your host, John Chapman.
What is going on, faithful? Welcome back to another Coach Approach. We got the 49ers Rush Podcast. We got 49ers Cut Back the Man Ant. We're going to be talking about what to expect as we head into week 2 of 49ers training camp. We're about a week out from the first preseason game for the 49ers. Tonight, Hall of Fame game, which I'm super excited about. But what I'm more excited about than that, Ant, how we do it today. We got a lot of position battles. We got 2 new 49ers. A lot of news coming in, man.
Yeah, it's an exciting time. This is one of the funnest times when it's training camp. You got all the competitions going on the field, but you got a lot of movement too. Players are going to come, players are going to go. 49ers are building a Rolodex. They work out 8, they sign 2, and this is kind of just the norm. You know, how many times have we been standing waiting to go over to training camp and all of a sudden our phone goes off and there's, you know, a couple of different moves, some of them surprising, some of them not so much. And that's it. It's just that time of year, and thank God we're there. Football is back. Tonight, we're going to get a game, and the 49ers are just around the corner from preseason starting, and I can't wait for preseason games. But even that, joint practices next week with the Broncos, real football's here because the joint practices matter when it comes to building this team and who's going to make this team.
And, man, you talk about joint practices with the Broncos. They got like a freaking 49ers defense. Like, they got all our guys over there. You had DJ Jones, Talado Funga, Dre Greenlaw. Like, they got a couple other spare parts there, too. Like, that is going to be – and I think that they have the best defense in football. Like, if I had to rank 1 through 32, just, you know, preseason ranks or whatever, obviously you got to play football. But, like, this 49ers offense is going to get tested. They've got, I think, the best corner in football. I mean, that is a stout defense. They're going to get their time. I'm excited about that. But let's talk about the 2 new 49ers. Little bit of a shock. They signed running back Amir Abdullah and wide receiver Andy Isabel, both former second-round picks. Amir Abdullah pretty long in the tooth, but he kind of fits that Jerick McKinnon, you know, third down, height, weight, speed, kind of explosive back pass catcher. And then Andy Isabella. Now, what's crazy is we don't know for sure exactly who the 49ers are releasing to make room on this roster. But talk to me about what Amir Abdullah means and why they needed to add a running back.
Yeah, you know, I thought it was interesting. You know, they've been working with less running backs since they waived Israel Bonaconda just a little while back to make room at another position. And I think when he got claimed, it kind of threw off their thought process. They're probably just going to bring him back because it's more of a depth thing. But now they went into who is going to fill that extra running back role. You need to have these guys when you go through preseason games because you're not going to use McCaffrey. And so you have to have the extra running back, and that's what they're working towards. But Amir Abdullah is a guy that's got a lot of ability. He's one of those guys that's dual threat. He can run the football, he can catch the football out of the backfield, and he's a guy that already understands playing in the NFL. And I think that's what they did with these 2 signings was got guys who know what's going on. And they've been doing that a little bit with getting key veterans and guys who understand the scheme already to a point and can have a smooth transition. That's what they're looking for. I think with Jeff Wilson Jr., they love Jeff Wilson Jr., but the thing is, if they sign him, he wants to make this 53-man roster, and I'm not sure that this signing was about making that 53-man roster. Maybe they come back to him if something happens to Patrick Taylor or they have a different injury, but right now, I think that that's kind of what these moves illustrate. As soon as I saw that list of tryouts, I knew they were going to sign Andy Isabella because of the speed factor. That was going to happen, and Kyle Shanahan's looking for more speed. You could see him integrating it into his offense, and Isabella's been a guy that's been a thorn, but also, don't forget, I'm sure that Brant Boyer's over there like, oh, Andy Isabella, you want to come do some kick returns for me? And I think that'll be interesting as well.
You know, I remember when Andy Isabella came out, I had like a 3rd or a 4th round grade on. Came out of UMass, and like he ran a 4.31. Like, he is the fastest person, even at this age, on the 49ers roster. Like, it's not close. Like, he is insane type speed. You got a couple 4.38, 4.37 type guys. Like, he is a full half second faster in the 40. Now, like, I understand the wide receivers because, again, Jacob Cowing, Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall. Ricky Pearsall seems back, but you still got to build in those rest days. Demarcus Robinson suspension. Like, the wide receiver and corner positions, I feel like, are the most in flux because it's just, man, you're stacking injuries on injuries at those two positions. But if we're looking at the wide receiver spot, I want to give you a couple different scenarios. Okay, looking forward to week 1. Who are your 3 wide receivers? Obviously Ayuk's out. For week 1, if you had to place a bet or whatever, who do you think are the first 3 wide receivers out there in our 11 personnel set week 1 as of now?
I think it'll be Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, and Russell Gage. I think that those will be the 3 guys in 11 personnel because I don't know if Cowing's going to be back. I think he will be, and we'll see how he works back in. But Russell Gage has just been consistent, and he goes out there and executes. The routes are good. He looks smooth and clean. He's going up and making some plays over the top of cornerbacks too. When I was out there on Monday, it was very impressive. A catch along the sideline. We're not sure if he got in or not, but that's not the real deal. The fact is he went up and he made a big time play, and we're just seeing that. And I think it's something to these wide receivers right now. You're seeing that kind of veteran poise. They know where to be. They know where to go. And Brock Purdy is feeding off that. St. Brown, Russell Gage, all these guys getting them the football, and they're being able to do something with it. So I think it's going to be those 3 guys, which I wouldn't have said 3 weeks ago, but that's kind of where we're at.
Right. And a reminder, I think Russell Gage is probably one of the biggest winners so far through training camp. And it's early. There's still a lot more to go. There's still more preseason football, all those things. But whenever you look at Russell Gage, this was a guy that had over 100 targets in a year, 70 catches, close to 800 yards. And back, he put up, 14 touchdowns over the course of 3 years. Like, he was a perfect wide receiver 3 for the Falcons and then the Tampa Bay Bucks. But then he tore his patella tendon in 2023 or 2022. So whenever he did that, it was kind of like, oh, wow, like, is his career over? All those things. And like, we know it takes years to get back from that, unless you're Josh Simmons, which, whatever, I don't even want to go down that road. But whenever you look at it now, he is just now getting back to kind of the explosive consistency. His body is doing what it's supposed to do. It just took him a long time to get over that hump. I thought it was going to be Isaiah Hodgins or Russell Gage. I am so psyched for him that he's able to be out there, do what his body wants to do. And again, probably one of the biggest winners. And I wouldn't be shocked if he was the first wide receiver out there in that 11 personnel set when the 49ers go 3 wide. If Demarcus Robinson is suspended, whenever that comes down, who knows? That's a whole mess there. But the fact that they do, and, a lot of people keep getting upset, like, why don't you sign Keenan Allen? Why don't you sign Amari Cooper? All this stuff. They have the veteran guys that have been in their system that they can trust. They have that. Now they're choosing to save money, which is kind of the 49ers philosophy now. But you have that veteran presence there, and I think that's huge. And Oscar says Jennings, Pearsall, Hodges. But, yeah, I think Gage will cover for Robinson. I'm with Ben here, and I think that is huge. Now, let's switch to another offensive situation. Nick Zakelj has stepped in for Ben Bartch, who's been injured. Now, here's the issue with Ben Bartch. He has lost his starting job multiple times already in his career because of injuries. Lost it at Jacksonville and, came in and started a couple games. It was awesome for the 49ers last year. Got injured again. He was the starting left guard all through OTAs and minicamp. Gets injured again on his own. Is Nick Zakelj going to give up that job? Who do you think is going to win that kind of battle? Will Ben Bartch get reinserted back into the starting lineup? Or is it going to stay Zakel's job?
I think this is one of the most interesting battles left at training camp is that left guard spot. And Nick Zakelj looking pretty good. I mean, when it comes to pass protection, we knew that was an area where he was pretty darn good. But he's showing it in one-on-ones. He's showing it out there in 11-on-11s that he's being consistent in pass protection. And that's one of the big elements that helps Brock Purdy when there's not an internal push. Then he can see over the top of the lineman. He can step up in the pocket and deliver footballs over the middle of the field. And it's one of those cases where we just saw this happen last year. Dominic Pooney got an opportunity because of injury to start at right guard, and he never looked back. I don't know when Ben Barch is going to be on the field. I was hoping sooner rather than later so we could get a real competition. I want to see Nick Zakelj pushed, and I want to see Ben Barch, go out there and see if he can be consistent. That's going to be the key. When Barch gets out there, will kind of give us an idea of when he can possibly take this role. I think right now Zakelj's doing enough. It's going to be hard for Ben Barch to just step right in and take that role. I think they're going to make him earn it. And with Nick Zakelj, it's, can you be more consistent run blocking? There were moments I liked it at camp. There's moments I haven't liked it. And so that's going to be the key. But right now, I think Zakelj is kind of sitting in the catbird seat, and Barch is in a situation where he needs to get back, or he's going to not have a starting job when he does get back.
And we've seen these guard spots, like you lose your job. You can go all the way back to, who was Aaron Donald's father? The right guard, and, was all over the place. He gets injured, and that's where Spencer Burford steps in, right? And then Spencer Burford gets injured. That's where Dominique Pooney steps in. You lose that job. Like, continuity is level 10 out of 10 for Chris Foerster, the 49ers offensive line coach. He wants gel. He wants everybody to know where everybody is. He doesn't like shakeups. And shout out to my man, Oscar, one of the best ever. He says, don't see why we don't move Pooney over to left guard and solidify one side. I would argue this is very intentional because Trent's on the left side. Pooney brings a little bit more stabilization to the right side next to Colton McKivitz. You don't want a weaker right side and a super strong left side. It's funny. I do this. I read other teams' beat reports on practice reports. Jackson Powers Jackson of the Raiders, they just moved him from center to right guard. They're doing the same thing. They signed, Colton Miller to big money, left tackle. That's the strength of their offensive line. They're moving their number 2 to right guard. And so it just kind of balances out the left and right side. And I know Dominique Pooney's played on the left side probably most of his career, but I do not want Jake Brendel next to Ben Barch or Nick Zakelj next to Colton McKivitz. I want a strength in there somewhere. Am I by myself on that? I know a lot of people are like, man, let's move him to left guard. Usually gets paid a little bit more, but because you have such a great left tackle in Trent, that's why I like the balance of spreading it out.
Well, and I think we might have seen Dominic Pooney help out Colton McKivitz a lot last year. I mean, Colton McKivitz improved mightily. So keeping them together and keeping that tandem together is important. You talked about continuity. You get guys who are used to playing together, used to passing things off and communicating. It's like, why upset the apple cart? Let them go ahead and handle that. And Colton McKivitz got better run blocking last year. He got more effective in pass protection. So working those two guys together just makes sense. Plus, Zakelj has showed that he's played better at left guard than he has any other position. Maybe center last year, he started doing pretty well in training camp, but I think that they've got a consistency now. And having a guy that's a little bit weaker of the guards next to Trent Williams is going to more than make up for that. He can be the communicator there. They're more there to kind of stabilize and balance him. One interesting thing about Trent Williams, because he's massive, is when Nick Zakelj's next to him, Nick Zakelj looks big. I mean, that dude is, I don't think we realize how big that guy actually is with that 6'6", well over 320-pound frame. I mean, he's not small. The smallest lineman is Jake Brendel, and everyone else is a monster. It's impressive to see from the 49ers offensive line.
It's weird. Nick Zakelj, like I'm looking at his mock draftable, he's huge. You're right. Over 6'6", 320, but he's got tiny arms. Like, he's in the 18th percentile 32-inch arms, 17th percentile wingspan, 9-inch hand. Like, it's weird, but you're right. Like, his frame is huge. He just got those little T-Rex, whatever. He's got John Chapman arms. That's not going to help you in the NFL. Anything that you have in common with John Chapman, I'm just going to tell you that's a negative. But I do think what Zakelj brings is pass protection. Like, and this is what 49ers fans have been clamoring about. Like, man, let's get some solid pass protection out there. And I think that's what Zakelj offers over Ben Barch. Now, Ben Barch better in the run game. No doubt about that. He can move people. That's not really what Zakelj does. So, it's not so much do you value one or the other. I would argue Chris Foerster says, I value who's here, who has practiced it. I want to stay with that. And sticking with that, I mean, we've got to talk a little bit about McKivitz. he's talking about wanting to be a Pro Bowler. And, he had an awesome article come out with Barrows. Shout out to Barrows. He always does great stuff. And, I would argue this too, Logan. The fact that Pooty makes McKivit's job easier is a godsend for Purdy. And, yeah, I think McKivit's kind of got better whenever he didn't have Aaron Banks next to him, whenever he didn't have one of the, not necessarily John Feliciano, but Spencer Burford or whatever. Whenever you can get that solid play from the right guard next to McKivitz, he elevates his game.
Yeah, he does. And the thing about Colton McKivitz is we had to give him a chance to get better. He hasn't been playing right tackle consistently, until a couple years ago. Then they put him out there, and he was before that, he was swing tackle. They flirted with him at guard. So now that he's kind of been a mainstay at right tackle, they're getting really good play out of him. And I think his footwork and the way that he approaches the game is the right way. I think they're confident in him. They always have been. But what we saw last year, too, was not just a pickup when it came to pass protection, but also when it came to run blocking. He started being more effective run blocking, and that's one of the things the 49ers always look for in their right tackle. The right tackle has to be able to get to the second level, has to be able to operate in space, and he does that at a high level. So I am a fan of Colton McKivitz. I think when it comes to right tackles, he's solid. I know he's not great, and a lot of people are looking for great at every single position along the offensive line. But when you're paying Trent Williams what you're paying Trent Williams, you can't have great across the board unless you draft extremely well. And they haven't spent that much draft capital besides Dominic Pooney. Not really a lot of draft capital on offensive line. So you have to have these hits. And Colt McKivitz, it's doing a good job. Somebody will sign this guy in the offseason. If they don't sign an extension, someone's going to sign this guy for well over $20 million a year. That's just how valued right tackles are in this league.
And so then the question becomes, do you, stick with the cheaper option like a Spencer Burford or Austin Pleasance or draft and develop, or do you and allow Colton McKivitz to leave and get that comp pick, which this is kind of the way the 49ers have built, because if he gets $20 million, you're getting a 4th round pick for him back. And so how do you gauge this roster construction pain? I do think if you could get a quality right tackle and keep him, that is rare in today's NFL. We saw, I wouldn't call McGlinchey really a quality right tackle. You saw him leave and get paid, and you replaced him with the cheaper McKivitz that I would argue has been better. You lose a little bit in the run game, but a little bit better in the pass game. Right tackle's the worst position in the NFL. I think if you stack the top 32 starters at every single position, I would argue right tackle and probably that number 2 corner are like the 2 worst positions in the NFL. And so I don't know. Do you think that it is kind of on the back burner for the 49ers to extend Colton McKivitz? Would you be okay with that, or kind of roll the dice, draft, develop? Remember, the 49ers are the only team in the NFL that have not drafted an offensive tackle or a center in the past 3 drafts combined. Like, I don't know how they're going to address this.
Yeah, I actually put this out that I thought that he was the next guy that should have got the extension after, Brock Purdy and Fred Warner and George Kittle came down, because finding a solid right tackle is difficult. But also, how often are you going to pick high enough to get a starting right tackle, when they step in as a rookie? I think that's difficult. We've been kind of clamoring for the 49ers to draft a offensive tackle, play him at right tackle, then eventually move him over for Trent. But you could work an extension for Colton McKivitz that his money's a 2-year deal, that when Trent's money comes off the board, right, it kind of affects the contract a little bit. When you're ready and you have to pay Dominic Pooney, now his deal comes off the board. So there's a lot of ways you can handle this, but not to mention next year, the salary cap is probably going to explode. You're more than likely going to have plenty of money to pay Colton McKivitz compared to what somebody else would make. So I think it's okay to go ahead and sign him to an extension. What that money looks like, I'm not sure. But if he makes it to the open market, he's going to get a ton of money because people value offensive linemen, especially consistent ones. If he even plays as good as last year, he's going to be very valued around the league.
And what's crazy to me, Colton McKivitz is 29 years old. Like, he was old whenever he came out. So if you extend him for, let's say, 2 years, 3 years, you're paying him into his 32-year-old season. I think that kind of adds on to it. I think they would like to, but only if it's going to be a super cheap deal. Like if it was like a 2-year, $30 million extension, somewhere around there. but I think he's going to get way more money. Offensive line market has gone through the absolute roof. Offensive line, wide receivers, I'm just like, good Lord. Unless they're an all-pro player, which he is not, he's hoping for a Pro Bowl year. I would argue he's probably gone next year. 49ers throwback, Grady Count. He says he is gone next year as well. I think so. I think he is going to be gone as well. Now, we've got some more roster questions, which I'm super pumped about. The 49ers have been one of the weirdest teams at tight end. Last year, they only kept 2. The year before, they kept 4 on their initial 53-man roster. So, coming up next, I want to get Ant's take. How many tight ends are the 49ers going to keep on their roster right after this? 49ers Rush Road Trip is going into its 6th year with over 40 events at road games. If you are traveling to see the 49ers play this year, you got to come party with us. And on top of that, we give games, trivia, giveaways. We've partnered with TickPick this year. All you have to do is search 49ers Rush on any of the TickPick sites, apps, you name it. And on top of all of that, best dressed, giveaways, autographed jerseys, kids are always included, and get in for free with a ticketed adult. And a lot of times for select cities, we will have 49ers legends come out and you get to meet and greet them and get an autograph. Navarro Bowman, Frank Gore, Patrick Willis, Fred Warner are all players that we have worked with in the past. And trust me, if you want to build the 49ers community, you're traveling by yourself, we got you covered. 49ersRushRoadTrip.com. All right, look at this comment, leaving 3 linemen drafted next year. I don't know what year this was originally written, but I feel like that has been copy and pasted for, 5 consecutive years. And the 49ers just shrug their shoulders every single sneaking time and do not draft tackles. They do not draft centers. They only draft guards, sometimes multiple guards. But that's all right. Let's talk tight ends. Logan says, when Chapman brings up tight ends, makes me sad. We didn't draft Harold Fannin Jr. I freaking love that man. I love that man. We'll see how it goes. So last year, the 49ers kept 2 tight ends on their initial 53-man roster. Now, they eventually brought back Saubert and Braden Willis, but it was just Jake Tonches and George Kittle. The year before that, in 2023, they kept 4. George Kittle, Charlie Warner, Ross Dwelly, and Braden Willis. No Cam Latu. He didn't make it either time. What are the 49ers going to do now? I'm going to go through just real quick what they have at their disposal. George Kittle, Luke Farrell, Ross Dwelly, Jake Tonches, Braden Willis, Mason Pline. What is your prediction for that 53? Is this a position where they can kind of sandbag and keep back a couple and try to bring them back later? Or do they just say, we like what we have in-house?
I think that they might be able to create a couple roster spots the same way they did last year where they held on to Kittle and Tungus. Of course, it won't be Tungus this time. I think it's Kittle and Farrell. And then you have the opportunity to bring Dwelly back no matter what, right? He's a vested veteran. You could release him, and he's going to clear waivers. You can bring him back to the 53 once you've made other moves, or you can put him on the practice squad and elevate him. I think that they've got reason to believe they can do that. Braden Willis, he cleared waivers last year. So that kind of illustrated what he was thought of around the league. Mason Pline is still a developmental guy. I don't think Jake Tungus now, after last year, is going to get anyone's attention. I think that they can make a roster move here if they decide keep 2 tight ends. I've been surprised. I've been hearing people say they're going to keep 4 tight ends, and a lot of the times it's Ross Dwelly and Braden Willis or Ross Dwelly and Mason Pline. And I just don't understand kind of the thought process. To me, none of those guys have really separated themselves. I do believe Braden Willis is having the best training camp of those guys that are competing, but it's not really great enough to where you're like, wow, we need that guy on our roster right now. Special teams probably going to play a big element in this with Brant Boyer, but yeah, I don't think anyone's really separated themselves. I'm kind of surprised people would keep 4 tight ends when you have extra defensive linemen, extra offensive linemen at some key positions that you'd rather keep an extra guy.
Yeah, and that, obviously with the PUP and the NFI rules and kind of, they keep kind of changing that up every year. If you are on the PUP or the NFI, you have to miss 4 games this year. Not if you're on the PUP or NFI right now, but if you're on the PUP or NFI after the initial 53-man roster cut down. So you're going to have to get careful because with guys like Ayuk, Demarcus Robinson, some of those things, hopefully all these hamstring issues heal. But, man, you're going to have to kind of be careful with a couple positions. And I do think tight end is that spot where you just keep two. George Kittle, 100% lock, obviously. And I think Luke Farrell, 100% lock. Outside of that, man, you cast them into the wind. And I know that this sounds like, whatever, like it sucks. I don't want anybody to lose their jobs. But if you do that, guess what? You're going to get them or something else back. And I think that's kind of key for what the 49ers are doing. Oh, we got news. The 49ers signed way more. Good Lord. They signed Amir Abdullah to a 1-year deal. They signed quarterback Carter Bradley to a 1-year deal. Wide receiver Marquez Callaway to a 1-year deal. And Andy Isabella to a 1-year deal. In order to make room for this, they have released newly acquired Equanimeous St. Brown, waived Sebastian Gutierrez. So that's interesting. He was with the 49ers for 2 years. Malik Knowles, one of my favorites, and Jalen Mahoney gone. So the roster turnover churn has begun. What are some of your initial thoughts?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was on Twitter. That's why I was kind of looking over, and I saw Andy Isabella wearing 7. So I figured that Equanimeous St. Brown had been released. And so that happens. And, I don't think it's that crazy, right, to change out a veteran. You already had Isaiah Hodgins, even though I thought St. Brown was having a better camp than Hodgins. But you have Hodgins, so you don't really need a guy like that. Let's get Andy Isabella with more speed. Amir Abdullah, they needed to add to the running back. We talked about that earlier. But they're starting to make some decisions. Okay, Mahoney, you're not going to make this football team. Let's bring somebody else in. But I also do think we heard Robert Saleh talk in his presser about Derek Canteen and Sierra Neal as safety position potential. Could they have those guys kind of translate? The Canteen especially was a guy that had played safety in college as well. So maybe they're looking at him more as a versatile piece. And they're like, we don't need Mahoney right now for what we're going to do. So it's interesting for sure. And I didn't expect them to sign that many guys, but hey, let's see how it shakes out. 49ers are going to do this. I think there's going to be other wide receivers that might get kind of released later on.
And yeah, like you look at, okay, Equanimeous St. Brown, he was brought in. Can he be a vertical stretch threat type guy? Well, all right, time to move on. It didn't fit. Malik Knowles, he was kind of that Debo role. I was a huge Malik Knowles guy whenever he came out of the draft. Heard his name a couple of times, but just didn't do enough. And what happens now in the 49ers, they started doing this about 3 years ago, where once they know somebody's not making the 53-man roster, they move on. Because what they want to do is churn the back end of the roster so that during the season, they have a bigger player pool to draw from at these positions. So if injuries do stack, as we've seen in the past, these guys know a little bit of our playbook. So you can go back and get a Malik Knowles. You can go back and get a safety, Jalen Mahoney. You can go get an offensive lineman, Sebastian Gutierrez, off of other teams' practice squads or whatever. They know our system, the 49ers offense, defense, special teams. But this just gives you a larger player pool to pull from because more guys are familiar with what you do. They didn't do this the first 4 to 5 years of the Shanahan regime, but about 3 to 4 years ago, they started saying, at this point in training camp, let's just recycle the back end and try to figure out who is the best fit. And it gives us more to pull from because, like you said, whenever they released Izzy, the running back, man, how many times do they bring these guys back that they've had before in the past once the injuries do come about? And so it gives you a little bit more of that. So anything else you want to talk about? Let's talk about the guys that were released: Equanimeous St. Brown, Sebastian Gutierrez, Malik Knowles, and Jalen Mahoney. What do we have to take away from that being the factor?
Yeah, I think these were all, back of the roster type guys. So like you said, let's take a look at somebody else. We know what these guys can do. We know what they would add to the football team, and you talk about efficiency all the time when you're talking about business, and the football team's no different. We've got redundancies. Okay. St. Brown is a lot like Hodgins, and he's a lot like, other rookies, Isaiah Nayer, and let's get somebody else in here that's different. There's a guy like Andy Isabella that's super fast that could possibly help us on special teams. Let's give him a try. I think one of the things that's interesting, though, is the Carter Bradley signing. I honestly thought they were bringing him in just to work out the wide receivers and running backs. I did not think that he had a chance to start or make this football team or at least be in the 90-man roster right now.
That's Gus Bradley's son.
Right. That was extremely surprising to me. I haven't been impressed with Tanner Mordecai when I was out there. I wasn't impressed with Mordecai's game. I don't know if this is because of that, but maybe this also illustrates they're not going to play Brock very much in the preseason. They need that fourth quarterback. It's just interesting. I didn't see this one coming.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. Team nepotism. If the 49ers are anything, man, they freaking owners are sons of former owners, and coaches are sons of former coaches. And why not? Let's let Gus Bradley get his kiddo in here, whether that's a camp arm or whatever, however you want to dictate that. Hey, he played at Toledo. He played at South Alabama. He's 6'3", 216. He's a big dude like his dad. He's 25 years old. Yeah. Outside of that, I don't have much. I do want to talk about Marquez Callaway. The 49ers are putting a gigantic emphasis on these deep ball type wide receivers. Equanimeous St. Brown, who you brought in and now cut, that was his go-to. He's a field stretcher. Now, Marquez Callaway at Tennessee, that's all he did. For the Saints, who he was with for, how many years was it? He was there with the Saints for 4 years. He was just a big play wide receiver. Like he's just a guy that just stretches the fit. Now, he's not a speed guy. He was like a 4-5 guy, but he is a vertical threat. 6'2", 204. Andy Isabella, vertical threat. I think this offense is trying to find, again, that true X while you don't have Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk's going to be the X, and I understand he's not the best field stretcher. That's not the best part of his game. But while Ayuk is out, they want somebody that could take the top off of the defense. That is what they are going for.
Yeah, they are. And, adding guys who can win, right? Win in space. And I think that's what they're looking for, is these guys that can stretch vertically, but also win. And one of the things to remember about these guys that stretch the field vertically is that's going to create all the space for George Kittle, for Christian McCaffrey, and for these guys that need that middle of the field to operate. And that's exactly what they do well. Even Demarcus Robinson, I was very impressed with Demarcus Robinson when I saw him in person. I just thought he was a guy that just found ways to get open. And I think adding an Isabella and a Callaway is kind of a way to look and see, what does this mean for Junior Bergen? Does this mean that he's going to be pushed a little bit more when it comes to competition? Because Isabella and Bergen, as far as skill set, like that's what Bergen's supposed to be, is Andy Isabella. So interesting, though, because Isabella is so much faster. I am curious to see what this offense looks like. We're seeing Brock go down the field a little bit more, how this opens things up. But I love that they're taking shots. Let's go see what these other guys can do instead of just keeping someone that is not going to make this 53-man roster. Let's keep it rolling. Let's find guys who can make this team and make this team better.
Yeah, I like it. And, again, there was an addition, last week that I perhaps didn't cover enough. Shout out to my man Phil for the super chat. Good friend Phil there. He says, tell us about Jalen Allen. That's the defensive end that they brought in from the UFL. He played for the Memphis Showboat. 6'2", 245, was a teammate of Bryce Huff at Memphis, and probably is kind of the Bryce Huff break glass in case of emergency guy. 6'2", 245. He's the smallest edge player the 49ers have on their roster, and, had a pretty good year last year in the UFL, but is that speed pass rusher only type guy that could help on special teams. And so, again, you're going to start seeing this. Don't think that this is the last time that you're seeing all these roster moves. And the 49ers are kind of doing it before other teams are. They want to get as many guys into their 90-man as possible. And this is kind of another product of skipping free agency. You didn't bolster your 90-man roster throughout free agency. You signed a couple big need positions, but, man, you drafted 11 players in the draft. You brought in 6 undrafted free agents. And now even the behind that part roster, you're recycling even more so. The 49ers have a very top-heavy roster. So it does seem like they're taking this approach of bargain bin specials over quality free agents that are holding out for a starting position. It's not really the way the 49ers do it. But Jalen Allen is another one of those, hey, not even in the NFL. That dude was in the UFL. They're going after a certain type that fit their scheme that they want to see and see if they can find something, uncover every rock type mentality.
Yeah, and they've been going kind of with a couple of different styles, right? They got the big physical guys, Robert Beal Jr., Mikael Williams, like these big, huge guys. And they got the Sam Okuwanus, and they had Teron Jackson. Of course, he got hurt, and they had to reach the settlement with him. But that 6'2", 250-pound type of body. So they have these two different types they're going for. And so they add Jalen Allen. And, he is very undersized. When you see him, even in his pads, he looks like a linebacker in a base set. Like, he's just not very big. It's going to come down to technique and skill. I do believe that this is another just opportunity to see what he's got, see what he can do in case you need to look for him later. I don't think he's got a shot to make the 53. I don't think he's going to make an impact on the 49ers, but I don't mind them taking a shot on a guy with an elite trait, which is speed, and just seeing what's there, because you never know if you're going to need somebody down the road for a specific role. And you could find somebody that's a poor man's Bryce Huff, and something happens, heaven forbid, to Bryce Huff. Maybe you bring him in and he could give you a little element here or there down the road if you develop him. So I don't mind taking a look at these guys. But that's why I didn't invest too much time on talking about Jalen Allen during the week, because I think he's going to be a camp body and somebody that's not really going to make an impact on the 90-man roster. But I get the questions because he's enticing because of the speed.
Yeah. Now, Matt Barrows just put out, we have 3 studs back at practice today. Ben Barch, who we started talking about, has he, now we said, can he get the job back? So it's going to be interesting to see that left guard rotation, which I'm pretty pumped about. Ben Barch versus Nick Zakelj. Mikael Williams, who had a small ankle, is what they kind of like little ankle issue, non-severe ankle. He's back after missing one day. And Ricky Pearsall, after, a one-day premeditated, I don't know the right word, they were going to give him this scheduled day off as he kind of revamps back in. He is back as well. So Ben Barch, Mikael Williams, that's 3 starters back at practice. We'll see if Ben Barch can get his job back, but the Mikael Williams is wonderful because you never know. When 49ers talk injuries, I'm always just like, dude, I do not believe anything you say. But the fact that he only missed one day, that is nice. It does seem like the 49ers are being a little more precautious with injuries this rolling around instead of CMC being out there and, all that stuff. It does seem like they're just giving a little bit more time off.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle Shanahan kind of talked about this, that a lot of the players would have already been back at training camp, right? He talked about Pearsall would have started training camp if this was another season, but they've learned and they've grown and they're trying to do better by all the specs and all the things that they're learning about how to put these guys out there at the right times. And I like the approach. It's not that important for somebody to be out there week 1 of training camp as it is for them to be ramping up when you're getting into the preseason and preparing for that regular season. So making sure that you give Ricky Pearsall the necessary rest, making sure that he's going to be available, I think is important. But I'm also super excited that you said Ben Barch is going to be back. I had a kind of a sneaky suspicion that he was going to be back to start this block. So that's why I wanted to know, what's going to happen with him and Nick Zakelj. I think this is the competition we all wanted and we're all hoping for, and now we're going to get it. And now the things are going to heat up. It's kick the tires, light the fires time right now for the 49ers at left guard, and we get the best possible player. That's the key. And now it'll kind of also balance out the offensive line. We have one more guy they need to get involved, and that's Andre Dillard. When Andre Dillard comes back, that's when we'll get the rotation of the offensive line that I'm looking for. Maybe Burford switches sides every once in a while. We see how he does at right tackle as well as he competes for swing tackle. But then we'll finally see the full build of the 49ers offensive line, which I'm excited for.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, still no news on Dillard. And that's another thing with releasing Sebastian Gutierrez. He's played tackle predominantly. Now, I think that means that they have confidence in Spencer Burford. They have confidence in Austin Pleasance. I think that this is a positive for him. Andre Dillard, maybe he's getting close to coming back. I don't know. But I do want to get to this comment from Lee. Shout out to Lee. The Kyle Deep runoff guy, Travis Benjamin, Danny Gray guy, never makes any impact. Not for the 49ers, they haven't. And a lot of that has to do with the quarterbacks that you've had, whether that be Jimmy G or CJ Beathard or whatever else. But that guy has had a historic, amazing role for the Shanahan offense. You go back to Houston, you go to the Falcons, you go to Washington, like Santana Moss, like those guys have had success in the Shanahan scheme, just not since he's been here at the 49ers. But yeah, the clear out routes are a big deal. Like you have to have those. And so getting these bodies, you got to run the go routes to work on timing, and that wears your wide receivers out. So let's get these body,
What about
camp guys in
Marquise
there.
Goodwin? What about
Oh,
Marquise Goodwin? He was pretty good. He wasn't terrible. Travis Benjamin, you're right. He didn't work out. Danny Gray, I mean, he just got cut again. I think Marquise Goodwin was one of the guys that worked. But I mean, for the most part, it hasn't worked. And why is that? Well, these guys just haven't been able to develop. I still believe Danny Gray was tied completely to Trey Lance. I think that was the combination that they were looking for. In fact, I think the whole draft was tied to Trey Lance. But I think they are looking for that position. But John, do you think they found that guy? Do you think they have him in this one? Can Jordan Watkins be that guy? Did they finally get a guy that can be that stretch guy that can actually make an impact?
man, I sure as hell hope he does. I really, really do. And I would argue Marquise Goodwin played the true X role. Like he wasn't just the clear out guy. Like they forced him to play like a little bit of like that Debo role before Debo. I'm more excited about Marquez Callaway, to be honest with you, because I remember him with the Saints. He tracks that ball so well. So like you've got the little speed guy in Andy Isabella, which is just a track athlete. You're trying to become a football player. Then you got Marquez Callaway, who's not a track guy, but is an actual football player. And so it has done it in the NFL. I mean, shoot, you look at Marquez Callaway. How many touchdowns did he have over that? He had 6 touchdowns in one season. Like that would have been second best on the 49ers last year. Now that's his best year, whatever else. But I'm just saying, man, like I'm not saying he's going to make this roster, but I'm a little excited. Whenever I saw Marquez Callaway's name on there, I was like, ooh, that is somebody that will do. Man, you lob up that Brock Purdy pass, he'll run underneath there and get it. But you want it to be Jordan Watkins, who's safe. He's going to make this roster. This allows him not to get completely gassed and work at some of the other wide receiver spots. I think that's a big deal. But I do not expect Jordan Watkins to contribute really outside of special teams early on, really at all. Do you? Do you think he'll be involved in early game wide receiver rotations?
I think there's a chance he could get a little bit more involvement early in the season. Just what I've seen so far from him at training camp, he doesn't look underwater. Like he looks like he knows where he's supposed to be, where he's supposed to line up, when to go in motion. It looks like he's a little bit further along than I've seen some of the rookies in the past. So I think that's one thing that I see from Jordan Watkins. And I seen him make a couple heck of good plays. There was one where Brock Purdy rolled to the right and he threw back across his body to the middle of the field, which I'm sure Kyle Shanahan just absolutely loved. We all know he hated that. But Watkins came out of nowhere, caught the ball, and took off running. And I was like, ooh, where did he come from? And where's that catch radius? So I think that there's a chance. I don't know how much. I think they'll have to carve out a certain role, but I do believe he'll get a little bit of run here and there because I do think he showed something right now. It's going to have to translate to the joint practices in preseason, but as of right now, from what I saw, yeah, he looks like somebody that could have, a catch or two here and there that make an impact for the football team.
Yeah, I think it's big. And, what about Isaiah Nair? I like him. I do, but that is a long-term play. And it's kind of like Mason Pine last year. Some of these guys, yeah, sure, you might like them, and they might offer a specific skill set that you really, really, really like. But doing it in training camp with the threes versus being dependable out there, Shanahan doesn't like young wide receivers, period. Really, the only ones that he liked were Debo and Ayuk, and he forced them with like jet sweeps. You remember when Ayuk used to do jet sweeps and end arounds and all that stuff? Like, yeah, I trust you, rookie. We got to play you, but you don't have to do that anymore. And so I love the excitement about Nair, but it's just like, whoa, like you got to pump your brakes early. I remember Mason Pine getting 0 snaps in like almost all the preseason games and never practicing. And then I'd come back and, from practice and people would be like, tell me about Mason Pine. He's going to make this roster. He's going to be the number 2 tight end. And I was like, he didn't get one team rep all week at practice. Like, so we're going to have to see how that kind of pans out. And so we're going to learn a lot more about those guys. So I love getting excited by these high upside players. I really, really do. It's just, I'm telling you right now, if you just sit back and temper your expectations, you are going to be very, very excited because you're not going to get disappointed. The 49ers just do not rely on young, you know, call me crazy. Am I crazy, Ant?
No, I don't think you're crazy, and there's a reason that these guys right now are lower on the depth chart. And with Isaiah Nair, I did look for him a lot because that was one of the things I wanted to see. We've seen the big spectacular catch down the middle of the field, but how is he doing with the other routes? The day-to-day, the normal minutia of playing wide receiver, and what's he doing when he's on an off route, or what's he doing when he's blocking? And I thought I seen a player that had some ability, and there were some things there. There were times he was open, and Tanner Mordecai's not getting him the ball, but of course we don't know where he's at in the progression on certain plays and things like that. But the good news is it looks like he's doing things right. But we're going to have to see a lot of big time plays from him in the coming weeks for him to be able to make this 53-man roster. Everything about him screams NFL stud. The 6'4", the 220, all of that stuff. And he's got the length and the ability. But I will say this, he is not a natural catcher of the football. If you watch him go through his routes, he goes to catch the ball, and he's using his hands now, John, but it's like he's almost double padding it because he's just so concerned about catching the ball. What I like is I'm not seeing too many footballs on the ground, but he's still developing to become a natural pass catcher. And so I think that's one element. How quickly is he going to figure this out? And that's going to be the question mark. But he does have the ability for these whole shot plays. And if he makes a couple of them, he's just going to be on everyone's radar.
I love it. Now, this has been way too much offensive talk for me. I am uncomfortable as a former DC. Like, this has to be changed. So let's flip it. Let's get over to the defensive side of the ball. Let's go through some of those position battles right after this. Hey, Niner faithful, if you're looking for tickets to see the 49ers play this season, TickPick is the destination for the best deals you'll find on tickets with absolutely no hidden fees. TickPick guarantees the best price on tickets to every NFL game and beyond. Download the TickPick app and use code NINERS, NINERS, at checkout to save $10 on your first order. Again, that's code NINERS. Get your tickets ready today to cheer on the team with the rest of the 49ers Rush community. And all of our events for the 49ers Rush road trip are sold exclusively on the TickPick app or tickpick.com. Just search 49ers Rush. All right, let's start off talking about Yetur Gross-Matos. This dude, all the knee injuries last year, he had the same problem last year in camp, knee injury. He had to have surgery, goes on IR, gets brought back, still knee issues. Had that one great game against, in the snow game where he had 3 sacks, 3 tackle for losses. Awesome. But now it's the same knee. Knee's back again. And I'm just like, man, why did the 49ers choose to keep him over Leonard Floyd? The injuries are huge. Is it just kind of like, man, every day that passes, I am just like a confidence down, major stock down on Yetur Gross-Matos.
Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't think Gross-Matos was going to be out this long. I thought he would be back already. And so now it's one of those things where it's starting to make me a little bit nervous about when he ultimately comes back. I think there's still time for him to come back and ramp it up, right? He's a veteran. He doesn't need as many snaps in training camp, but he's got to be ready. The last, maybe like the Raiders week or the week after that, he's got to be ready so they can ramp it up for the regular season, or he's going to start the season on the PUP list. I mean, that's kind of where we're at with Gross-Matos. I don't know. They haven't really talked about him a whole lot. He's kind of been flying under the radar. So he's interesting, but I was hoping he'd be back. I think he could have a big season playing with this defensive line and Robert Saleh, but you can't do anything if you're not ready to go. And apparently you still have knee issues, it's troubling.
Yeah, I'm concerned. I really, really am. And Rusty, shout out to Rusty. If the D-line meets expectations and special teams improves as hoped, spell short field for the offense with the unknowns. That's huge. And not that, the offense is going to be fine. You're returning 9 of 11 starters. And I'm not overly concerned about the offensive production. But if the defensive line can kind of hold up, that's what's going to be huge. And, I love the fact that we talk about all these new additions, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, no new defensive additions. In fact, you lost a defensive guy in one of your safeties. So let's go to the safety spot and let's talk about this. Shout out to Logan. I don't know how y'all feel, but the entire secondary will be an interesting battle for safeties and corners. How do you kind of see this defensive backfield shaking out? Renardo Green's on ice for several weeks, but there's a lot of moving parts there.
Yeah, I think that the safety position is interesting because I think Jason Pinnock is going to start at one of the safety jobs. And then after that, I kind of have Jair Brown leading right now over Richie Grant, but I think they're in a stiff competition. And then after that, it's not really anyone in the mix to start. I like Marquise Siegel. I've seen him make some good plays at training camp, but he's not ready to roll. He's not one of those guys that's out there, playing so good right now that he's kind of moving ahead of those other guys. So it's going to be a little bit of development for him. So you've got the 3-man rotation there. I do have concerns about safety, just what they're going to be able to do with consistency, because we haven't seen Jair Brown do it, right? We haven't seen Richie Grant prove to be a starter in the NFL. So there's some question marks for that safety room. When it comes to cornerback, I'm less worried. Renardo Green will come back. Renardo Green, Deommodore Lenoir are solid. You're getting good play from Trey Brown and Upton Stout, which is great. And you've got some other depth pieces at cornerback that have been doing well as well, because a guy like Dallas Flowers, to me, has been playing extremely well at going out there and putting out good tape and good reps. And so I think the 49ers have more depth at corner than we probably thought they did coming into training camp. But safety is still the biggest concern for me. Pinnock has to hit, and Jair Brown or Richie Grant have to be solid for the 49ers to be successful in the back end.
Yeah, that's huge. And so can Jair Brown just be consistent? That's kind of been his biggest issue in his career. And then once you get to those corners, like, man, what are you doing there? We've got, Dallas Flowers is getting reps with the ones, which is pretty awesome. Trey Brown getting reps with the ones. Upton Stout getting reps with the ones. Like, there's some rotation there. So let me pose it this way. Assuming Renardo Green stays where he is for now, I'm not overly concerned for Renardo Green week 1. But if you have Deommodore Lenoir healthy and Renardo Green is where he is right now, not practicing, who are your starting 3 corners and where are you putting Deommodore Lenoir?
I'm putting Lenoir on the outside. I think that I've seen enough from Upton Stout to think that he could go out there and compete if he was the selection. And so, if you didn't have Renardo Green, you could go Trey Brown outside. You could go Upton Stout inside. I do think Dallas Flowers is in the mix. I mean, he did start for Gus Bradley with the Indianapolis Colts. And in those 4 games he started before his Achilles injury in 2023 was really good. Like, he gave up 0 touchdowns. So he was playing at a high level. And he's got unique length. He's got athletic ability. He drives on the football well. He can play press man. There's a lot of elements to his game that I think translate well to the 49ers scheme and some versatility there. He is the traditional long guy, right? Renardo Green, he's got a little bit of length. Deommodore, no length. Upton Stout, no length. Trey Brown, no length. So it's interesting to have one of those guys. But I think Flowers is in the mix. Him and Trey Brown would compete for that 3rd cornerback spot on the outside if there was an injury. So I think that'd be interesting.
Yeah, I like that. And, adding to this, Ben, do you think they might move Demo into the slot in the red zone? A lot of teams don't use slot in the red zone, but yeah, I think you will see some of that week 1 with, Jackson Smith and Jig, but a lot of teams go big in there. So you're usually going to just be in your 2 corner sets, but, some teams will. And yeah, I don't know. You want somebody that's going to be stout in that run game. But Kyle Shanahan keeps going back to this. I want him to play one spot. We can put him there if we need to, and we have done that. I want him to play one position, which is weird because for his wide receivers, he says you have to play all the positions. Like, every wide receiver has to be able to play all 3 wide receiver positions, but corner, just play one. It's Kyle Shanahan's, brain is weird kind of how it works. But Demo can do it all. I love that. It's just, man, I have no clue how this is going to shake out. And either Trey Brown, Dallas Flowers, or Upton Stout, you have to have 2 of those 3 pan out. And if you want to throw in Terrell Luter Jr., cool. But you have to have 2 of those 3 because you do not have quality. You don't have it. I'm overly concerned and have been, and we'll have to see how it goes. That cornerback rotation, you got 2 studs. You need 2 more. Every team in the NFL needs 4 corners. Eli Apple's got experience, but let's be honest. I do like the veteran presence there, though, even though I don't think he's going to make the 53. You got to have 2 or 3 of these back-end roster guys step up. And, Logan, are you comfortable with Upton Stout versus Jackson Smith and Jigba week 1 on the road divisional game? Trial by fire, to say the least.
The guy it might be most comfortable with is Trey Brown. That's his former teammate, right? If anyone knows Jackson Smith and Jigba, and his characteristics, that might be the best way to go. And that's one of the key fun things you can do is you can play it by matchups. You don't have to say Upton Stout, for sure on Jackson Smith and Jigba. You could go ahead and leave Trey Brown in there. So I think that they do have the ability. They have some versatility to move guys around and find the key matchups they need. I think Trey Brown's ahead of Upton Stout right now. I just think Upton Stout is showing some real promise. I mean, there is some fight in this kid, and he's going out and competing every day, and he's taking on challenges. And I love the way that he plays, the aggressiveness, the physicality. There's still a lot to learn. We've seen Sam Womack do the same sort of thing in his rookie season, and then he just wasn't up to the task. Now, I do believe Upton Stout is a little bit more physical in the run game than Samuel Womack, but that's why it could be early on in the season, Trey Brown. And maybe at some point, the way Renardo Green got in there at some point during the season, that Upton Stout kind of works his way in. But yeah, Trey Brown versus Jackson Smith and Jigba is probably the way to go if you're the 49ers, considering he knows a lot about that Seattle team when it comes to the players that are on it.
And he's healthy right now. The biggest question with Trey Brown is he's missed 39 games in his first 4 years, but he's healthy now. Right. So and they're playing him outside, inside. He's never played inside ever in his NFL career. It's been short, but he's always been an outside corner. So you do have some versatility there, which I do like. And if he's healthy, I don't have a problem with it. When they signed him, I was like, whoa, that is a major, major injury riddled player. But if he's healthy, get him out there. I want vets. I believe in rookies taking vets jobs during the season. And I think the 49ers have kind of followed this playbook as well through multiple defensive coordinators. Now, whether that's Isaiah Oliver or Isaac Yadom or George Odom, like whatever else, but they like to go vets early. Whether that's good or bad, that's a different thing. But I don't like giving rookies jobs early. I want people to take those jobs during the season. Now, this is where I get a little conflicted. Shout out to Joe. He says, do you see Alfred Collins, getting a starting role immediately? Second round picks are a little bit different. First round picks, obviously different. Third round picks is where I get a little hazy. So, am I kind of talking against myself where I'm like, yeah, I see Alfred Collins starting immediately. Now, he's not getting a lot of the reps with the ones, though. So what are your thoughts there? Should Alfred Collins be kind of penciled in as a starter?
I think we're looking for him to track that direction. Right now, Alfred Collins is learning how to play the 49ers defensive scheme along the defensive line. And you can see that, when they're going through their drills, Chris Kacerik's having to coach him pretty hard, and he's still making mistakes, but you see the physical stature, you see the physical ability. And the thing is, he's making adjustments and picking it up. He is picking it up on the second rep and fixing the mistakes that he's making. So he's adjusting. And I think there needs to be an adjustment period for Alfred Collins. And I think once we get out there and he starts playing against the run game, that's when people are going to take notice of what Alfred Collins is doing. Right now, CJ West is blowing people up in one-on-ones when he's rushing the passer. That's kind of what CJ West does, right? He's a penetrator. He's physical that way. That's not Alfred Collins' game. You could tell he's still figuring it out. But at some point, Alfred Collins is going to be a base down defensive tackle that could start for the 49ers. And I still think it could be this season. He's just got to figure some things out. And he's got all of training camp in the preseason to get it figured out. So that way, when you get to week 1, he can go in there and stop the run, because that's ultimately what the 49ers front seven has been built to do behind Robert Saleh. That's been a main focus, and Alfred Collins is a big chip and why they think they can.
Yeah, and again, at Texas, he was a two-gapper. His job was to stay on the line of scrimmage and take up 2 gaps in the run game, and he did that as well as anybody. Doesn't mean he can't get push and all those things, but you're changing the philosophy of what your job is. Look, dude, this is Chris Kusarek, GTFO. Get off the ball as fast as you can and go that away. He could do it, and you saw that in some plays, but he hasn't been coached to do that consistently. He is an upper body stack and shed type guy where, kind of like you're going against those practice dummies where you lift up and then you discard and then you make the play and chase. That's what he's done, kind of, horizontal down the line stuff. Not anymore. This is a scheme adjustment that he's going through, and it's going to take some time. He's got the body, he's got the strength, he's got the width, he's got the height, he's got everything. It's just you're transitioning. It's a little bit different. It's going to take time. My guess is Alfred Collins starts week 1. My guess is it's going to be Jordan Elliott and Alfred Collins out there as your first team defensive tackles. I would prefer it to be Alfred Collins, Evan Anderson. Those would be the 2 guys I would want out there first snap on the defensive line. What's your projection there? What do you think will and what you want to happen?
Yeah, I think it's going to be Jordan Elliott and Alfred Collins as well. I think that Jordan Elliott at least gives you some upside when it comes to pass rush, and I think that's what they look for with that base down. If you put Evan Anderson out there, you're going to stop the run, right? Evan Anderson and Alfred Collins, the best run-stopping duo probably of the group of 49ers. The problem is Evan Anderson has 0 pass rush upside. Alfred Collins at least has upside.
Yeah.
So I do think it's going to be Jordan Elliott. I think if I had my way, it would be that CJ West took that job from Jordan Elliott, and it was CJ West and Alfred Collins. That would be the ultimate. I don't think they're going to start 2 rookies, but that would be really fun. And CJ West has looked very, very good.
Yeah, little fire hydrant is what they call him. So I just think that's the funniest comment ever. I don't even understand what it means. I guess it means you can't move them. But that's what Robert Saleh called him, the little fire hydrant. And I'm just like, trying to help me understand what that means. What do you mean by that? I don't know. But this has been the Coach Approach, the little fire hydrant of 49ers podcast. And talk to us just real quick. What do you got going on? I know your Patreon is always banging, and your channel is that show with Mark was awesome. Talk to us about what you got coming up in the next few days this week.
Yeah, so on Patreon, I've been going through an updated depth chart. So I did the offense already. I'm going to update the defensive depth chart as well from what has been seen, what's going on at camp, so you can get a better idea. That's going to be available on Patreon. And then tomorrow, I'm going to start talking about some of the risers, the guys that are really jumping up for the 49ers that are in competition to make this team. That's the idea. Who knows? 49ers could have a ton of news, and I have something else I have to talk about, but that's the plan right now.
Man, we are down. I've recorded 71 of our countdown series. I've got 20 more to go, and I'm just I'm seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. I don't know if it's a train coming or if I'm free, but I got 20 more individual episodes. Then it's back to film. My goal is to have those done by the first preseason game, because then it's film. I need film. I need new film, new tape in my life. So close, man. Can't wait. Thank you, Ant, for all that you do for the community. Awesome show. And for everybody else out there, we got new 49ers, which is always fun. And until next time, stay strong, faithful.